They thought his injuries have made him totally incompetent for his job. Not realizing what he will do to save a witness from a brutal gang on that day.
No!
Stop moving.
No!
Welcome back to Paramount Recapped. I don't have many subscribers, but your single comment is a ray of hope to motivate me. Alright, so this story kicks off with a grizzled old detective named Frank. He's basically a legend in the homicide department, been doing this gig forever. His day starts off like clockwork, coffee in hand, going through the motions, totally ready for another round of chasing bad guys. But just as he's settling into his groove, his phone buzzes. It's his daughter, Sam, calling from way out where she lives with her mom. She's all excited and begging him to come down for this big event she's got coming up. Frank, being the softy he is when it comes to her, promises he'll be there no matter what. He even hints that he's got a surprise gift lined up, but of course, keeps it mysterious for now. After hanging up, Frank links up with his partner Slater, and they're off to handle business as usual. Slater's got that no-nonsense vibe and warns Frank straight up. No hero stuff today, or they're both toast if things go sideways. Classic Frank, though, can't always play by the book. They roll up to the docks to question this guy Jimmy, who's supposed to know something. But Jimmy? Man, he's not about to sit down and have a friendly chat. Out of nowhere, the dude pulls a gun, grabs his buddy as a shield, and just starts firing shots like he's in some action movie. Total chaos. Frank doesn't miss a beat. He takes off chasing Jimmy through this crazy maze of shipping containers, weaving in and out while Jimmy keeps blasting shots until his gun clicks empty. Jimmy, realizing he's out of bullets, makes a mad dash toward the main road, probably thinking he's going to disappear into the crowd. But boom, just like that, a car comes out of nowhere and slams right into him, killing him instantly. Frank's caught in the mess too, smacking his head hard against the same car. Blood's dripping down, and his ears are ringing like crazy. Fast forward a few months, and Frank's a different guy now. He's got this hearing aid stuck in his ear because that whole crash really messed up his hearing. Turns out he lost a ton of his hearing ability, and now he's just trying to keep up with life as best he can. While he's grinding through another day at the precinct, Sam pops up on a video call. She's super proud, showing off the sign language she's been learning just for him. She's really pushing him to come to her recital next week. But Frank, looking all uncomfortable, brushes her off, saying he can't handle crowds anymore. She keeps asking, but right then his hearing aid starts acting up, making this horrible screeching noise, and he has to end the call. Not long after that, Frank heads to the doctor for a checkup. The doctor runs some tests and gives it to him straight. His hearing's gotten even worse, down by 80% now. She tells him he's got to avoid loud places, or he's risking going completely deaf. She also urges him to really buckle down and get serious about learning sign language, because pretty soon, that might be his only way to communicate. That evening, Frank's back on the job, this time working a brutal double murder case linked to some drug crew in Hyde Park. The victims were straight up executed, but nobody actually saw the shooter, just heard the gunfire. Frank tries talking to this witness who found the bodies, but it's no good. His hearing's a mess. Between the flashing police lights, camera clicks, and sirens, it's all just one big headache for him. He gets so overwhelmed he just bails and sits in his car, totally defeated. Later that night, Frank's nursing a drink alone at a bar, looking miserable. Out of the blue, Slater shows up and sits down next to him. Frank messes with his hearing aid to try to catch what Slater's saying. Turns out Slater switched over to the narcotics unit, and he's trying to lift Frank's spirits, telling him plenty of cops have disabilities and still kill on the job. But Frank's not buying it. He tells Slater he feels useless and is seriously thinking about quitting. Slater's not having that. He tells Frank about a new lead in the Hyde Park case. A deaf witness just came forward, and they need someone to interpret since their regular interpreter is out for a bit. He wants Frank to step in and help out. Frank's hesitant, admitting his sign language skills are pretty shaky, but Slater keeps pushing until he finally gives in. So they head over the next day to meet the witness, a woman named Eva. She's about 33, and she was right there when the murders went down, but didn't say anything for a couple of days because, well, she was freaked out. When they get to her apartment, it's clear the building is mostly empty, probably getting ready to be torn down or something. Inside, Frank awkwardly tries using his basic sign language, which totally annoys Eva since she was expecting a pro. At first, she's like, "Nope, not doing this," but Frank cracked a joke about being an old dog learning new tricks, and she softens up a bit. Eva explains that she's packing up to move out soon because the building's being cleared out for fancy condos. Slater starts digging into what happened that night, and Eva, who can lip read like a champ, explains that she was out taking pictures when she accidentally caught a brawl on camera. She shows them the footage, and sure enough, it ends with 2 people getting gunned down. Slater grabs her phone as evidence, promising to return it soon, but Eva's clearly scared. She's worried the killers are going to come after her now that she's talked. Frank promises to keep her safe. While Eva's not looking, Frank notices some meds in her bathroom. Naloxone, the stuff they use for overdoses. That little detail sticks in his mind. After they leave, Slater tells Frank he looked into Eva's past and found out she's been through rehab. Frank connects the dots and figures she wasn't just out taking artsy pics that night. She was probably scoring drugs. Later, they split up, with Slater taking the phone as evidence. But Frank suddenly realizes he left his own phone at Eva's place and heads back. Right at that moment, the killers from Hyde Park show up at Eva's door. Their leader, Mason, posts a guard downstairs while he and his crew head up to her apartment. Frank rolls up and spots a guy at the door, but plays it cool and walks past like nothing's up. Then he sneaks up the emergency stairs and peeks in through Eva's window. He sees Mason grilling her while Eva's freaking out, writing please on a piece of paper, begging for her life. Frank's trying to listen in, but his hearing aid is dying fast. Mason is pressing her hard, asking if anyone else saw that video. Eva's shaking her head, terrified. Frank bursts in, snatches the guns from Mason and his sidekick, and threatens to shoot if they don't back off. But then another guy from Mason's crew storms in, gun ready, and a shootout kicks off. Frank ends up accidentally shooting Angel, Mason's sidekick. In the chaos, Frank and Eva make a run for it. Mason's furious and orders his guys to spread out and trap them inside the building. Frank and Eva duck into an empty apartment to hide. Eva's freaking out, wondering how the killers even found her so fast, especially after she gave up the footage. Frank puts 2 and 2 together and realizes someone in the police department must be tipping these guys off. He accuses Eva of being out that night to buy drugs, not take photos, but Eva's had enough. She swears she's clean now and says she was actually celebrating because a gallery agreed to show her work. Eva admits she didn't report what she saw right away because she was scared, plus one of the guys that got killed was her old dealer. Frank steps outside for a sec, trying to find a neighbor with a phone to call for backup. Meanwhile, Eva, desperate for help, tries to get the attention of someone in the building across the street by waving like crazy, but no one notices. So after running around like crazy and getting nowhere, Eva suddenly notices a cop car chilling in the parking lot. She's thinking, finally, some backup. But nope, life hits her with another twist. These cops aren't here to save the day. Turns out, they're in cahoots with the gangsters, rolling up to lend them a hand instead. Total nightmare fuel. Meanwhile, inside, a medic shows up to patch up Angel, who's still bleeding from that earlier gunshot. Mason's hanging around, helping out as best he can, but his eyes catch something that makes his blood run cold. Frank's phone, just lying there. Mason freezes, piecing it together. Frank's out there, no phone, probably scrambling to find another one so he can call for help. Not wasting a second, Mason tells his crew, the crooked cops, to start sweeping the whole building to hunt down Frank and Eva. He even orders them to hijack any 911 calls coming from the building and reroute them so no real help gets through. Frank shows up back at Eva's place looking totally defeated because his phone search was a bust. Eva quickly brings him up to speed, explaining how the cops are dirty and working with the bad guys. Frank is floored, realizing Mason's one of them. The snake's been tipping off the drug dealers and knows their every move. Things are looking pretty hopeless, but Frank's not the type to just give up. He starts cooking up a plan on the fly and dashes toward the elevator with Eva right behind him. Meanwhile, the gangsters are glued to the CCTV cameras, keeping a close watch. Soon enough, they spot Frank and Eva hanging out on the 6th floor. That's when we figure out what the duo's been up to. They're trying to get the emergency intercom working inside the elevator. Frank's desperately yelling into it, begging anyone who'll listen to connect him with Detective Slater, the only person he trusts right now. But all he gets back is some useless automated message. They're about to leave the elevator when bam, the crooked cops ambush them, forcing them to duck back inside. Right around then, Mason gets tipped off about Frank's exact location and rushes to the elevator, leaving Eva's apartment wide open and unguarded. Frank, thinking quick, smashes the security camera in the elevator and punches a bunch of random buttons to throw the thugs off his trail. They finally pop out on the 10th floor and sneak back into Eva's apartment, hoping to grab Frank's phone. Inside, they find Angel still with the medic, who straight up refuses to get involved, saying it's not her problem. Angel, panicking, tries to call Mason for backup, but Eva knocks him out cold before he can finish. Frank and Eva snatch Angel's phone and make a run for it, locking themselves in another room. When Mason and his crew show up, they realize Angel's phone is missing. Mason tries to call it, but Eva's quick to spot what he's doing. She reads his lips and silences the phone just in time to avoid getting caught. Frank quickly fires off a text to Slater, telling him to call the number ASAP. But before they can catch their breath, Mason picks up on some faint noise, realizing where they are, and the chase is back on. Frank and Eva once again slip out the window, sprinting down the stairs and ducking into yet another random apartment. While they're hiding out, a video call pops up on Angel's phone from an unknown number. It's Slater. But here's the kicker. Frank's hearing aid battery is completely dead now, so he can't hear a single thing. Eva steps in, reading Slater's lips, and relays the message. Frank explains the whole ugly situation, and Slater promises he's on his way with reinforcements. But just as hope sparks, Mason and his guys figure out where they are and store the apartment, guns blazing. Frank and Eva have no choice but to scramble out the window again, creeping into the next room to stay out of sight. Eva's freaking out, wondering how the heck the bad guys keep finding them no matter where they hide. That's when it clicks for Frank. They're being tracked through Angel's phone. He quickly wraps the phone in his shirt and hurls it down to the ground floor. Naturally, Mason and his henchmen rush to the spot, thinking they've got them cornered, only to realize they've been duped. By now, Mason's patience is hanging by a thread. He snaps and orders his team to search every single room and wipe them out once and for all. Frank and Eva manage to find another hiding spot just in time, but things take a wild turn when they spot Slater entering the building. But here's the thing, this fool came alone. No backup, nothing. Frank's heart sinks for his friend, and he decides to go downstairs to help him out. They make it to the lobby, but what do they see? Slater's being held at gunpoint by one of the gangsters. Frank, realizing he's cornered, surrenders his weapon. But in a jaw-dropping twist, Slater picks up the gun and points it at Frank. Yep, Slater's dirty too. He's been the mole all along. Mason and his men swoop in and jab a needle into Eva's hand, knocking her out cold with a drug overdose. Their plan? Make it look like she OD'd on her own. Slater tries to talk Frank into keeping his mouth shut and joining their crew. Frank, with no real options left, pretends to go along with it. Happy with that, the bad guys leave Eva lying there and start dragging Frank out of the building. But Frank's not done yet. Once inside the elevator, he grabs the cop's gun and jams the button to close the doors, trapping them inside for a bit. He bolts back to Eva's room and finds an naloxone kit in her bathroom, jabbing her with it just in time. She wakes up, groggy, warning Frank the stuff only buys them 10 minutes before she's out again. Mason, meanwhile, is barking orders at his crew, telling them to seal every single exit. They're determined to finish Frank off this time. Frank hands Eva the gun and tells her to blast anyone who comes through the window. Then, without missing a beat, he starts dousing the room in gasoline and lights it up. Smoke pours out the windows, catching the attention of people on the street. Soon enough, fire trucks and a bunch of cop cars arrive, forcing most of the gangsters to scatter. Mason, though, isn't backing down. He sneaks in through a window, dead set on finishing the job. He creeps toward the bathroom, but Frank and Eva are ready. They douse him with acetone, sending him screaming in pain. The two make a run for it, but Mason, pissed and half-blind, ropes Slater back in to help him track them down. Frank and Eva stumble into a musician's apartment with a mini music studio. Moments later, Slater and Mason burst in, but Mason's still half-blind from the acetone. Slater creeps into one of the rooms, but Frank and Eva crank up the metal music to ear-splitting levels, blowing out Slater's eardrums. Disoriented, Slater stumbles out, and Mason, unable to see properly, accidentally shoots him. Realizing his mistake, Mason curses and storms off. Slater bleeds out and dies not long after, while Eva's naloxone wears off, knocking her out again. Frank, panicked, tries to wake her, but he hears Mason coming and hides. Mason walks in, surprised to see Eva knocked out, but Frank jumps out of nowhere and whacks him over the head with a guitar, knocking him out cold. Without wasting a second, Frank scoops Eva up and races out of the burning building, handing her off to the paramedics, who rush to revive her as Frank watches, heart pounding. The story wraps up with a time skip to the future. Frank's finally at his daughter's recital, watching her perform proudly. Eva walks in, sits next to him, and holds his hand. Against all odds, she survived, and now it looks like they're in a relationship. Thank you so much for watching and sticking around till the end. I really appreciate the support. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.